Hi, I'm Viktória Serdült, and I'm a journalist from HVG. Please listen to Visegrad Insight Podcast on Polish, Hungarian, and Ukrainian relations.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight Podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Respublika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
In today's episode, we're going to ask the questions about why Ukraine is so prominent in the Hungarian domestic politics and what makes Viktor Orbán disrespect the wishes of Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump, who want Ukraine to join the EU according to the recent peace plan. My name is Wojciech Przybylski. Listen to this episode. Viktória, thanks so much for joining the Visegrad Insight Podcast. And I'll go straight to the question we have regarding Hungarian politics and Ukraine. Why Viktor Orbán is bashing Ukraine so much in his domestic electoral campaign. The electoral campaign is basically ongoing, 24/7, 4 years in a row. Mr. Zelensky has been there in the campaign. We see it, but the intensity of the relationship with Ukraine, the negative relationship, the communication about Ukraine, tying it with opposition, this seems to be escalating. How important it is in the political domestic context, this message about Ukraine and the message about Zelensky, why Orbán is using that so much?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Wojciech, for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. But the question itself is quite a difficult one to answer because, as you say, the campaign on Ukraine is intensifying, but actually it has always been there since 2022 when, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine started. And I think the reason why it's escalating now is simply because there's going to be elections next year. And Prime Minister Orbán and his party has always used it in domestic campaigns. That is very clear to see. So what we are seeing now is if you come to Budapest or any other city in Hungary, you will see probably like dozens of posters with Zelensky and Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, and the opposition leader, Péter Magyar, on the same poster, saying that they are all pro-war, actually, which is a very prominent slogan of the Hungarian government, saying that the leader of the opposition party, Péter Magyar, who is actually ahead in polls, is pro-war. He is supported by the European Commission, and he is also somehow supported or connected to Ukraine and President Zelensky. Whereas in opposition to this campaign, Fidesz and the government is pro-peace, whatever that means, and that's how they are.
Pro-appeasement. Yeah.
Pro-appeasement, yes. So that is the main line of the campaign, and that is what we are seeing everywhere in Hungary right now. But what is important to mention, that this is basically nothing new. So this has been going on for 3 years now, actually, and it is used mainly for domestic politic purposes.
Well, we have seen that 3 years ago when the full-scale invasion of Russia and Ukraine started. Mr. Orbán has quickly built up this narrative. It was a surprise even to his allies in Poland. At that time, PIS, a far-right government in Poland, has distanced itself from Viktor Orbán. And on the same day, 15th of March, when Viktor Orbán was delivering a speech on the other side of the river, there was Donald Tusk, future then Prime Minister of Poland, supporting Peter Markizai and the opposition in this show. Mr. Kaczynski and Mr. Morawiecki were on a train to Kiev as together with the Czech Prime Minister and Slovenian Prime Minister, first European leaders to visit Kiev during the renewed intensity of the war between Russia and Ukraine. So in a way, that is, I understand, and we've seen that's an old line. But my question was a little bit more towards maybe not even the politics, but also the society. What would be the reasons of actually targeting Mr. Zelensky and Ukraine so prominently? Why is he the evil one? And what does Mr. Zelensky and the Ukrainians mean to to an average Hungarian, in a karczma, in a pub, city or urban dwellers or rural dwellers. Why Ukraine all of a sudden has such a prominent place in the narrative about the world for Hungarians, and they feel such a strong connection to it? There aren't that many Ukrainians in Hungary, no?
Well, actually, of course, we have more since the breaking out of the full-scale invasion, especially in Budapest. Many Ukrainians have found shelter. And I still remember that when it all started in 2022, there were lines of Hungarians lining up to help on the border. So actually, solidarity in Hungary is not dead. It has always existed. I think, first of all, the main reason of this whole negative campaign was not really about Ukraine in the beginning. It was simply a pro-war, pro-peace narrative. But as you very well mentioned, it has sort of become a true negative campaign against the Ukraine. And for me, even as a journalist, that is very hard to sort of solve the main reason behind it. One thing you have to understand is that the solidarity towards Ukraine and the whole society's whole viewpoint on Ukraine is actually quite different from other parts of the European Union. I visit Poland often. I also visit the Czech Republic or Slovakia. In Hungary, you would never really see Ukrainian flags everywhere or trams. So this is a big difference. That doesn't mean that Hungarians have anything negative about Ukrainians. That doesn't mean that Hungarians have a negative viewpoint on the Ukrainians. But I think it's also important to know that historically, Hungarians have never been on very good relations with Ukraine, especially because of Hungarian minority living in Ukraine, who have for a while faced some repercussions and hard time, even during Zelensky's time, Zelensky's administration. So I think there was something how should I put it in English? So in Hungary, there is some level of distrust towards Ukraine, which is not very prominent, but it was enough for the government to sort of deliver its campaign.
And at the same time, it seems that there are some very pragmatic policies that Hungary has been, in a way, see as opportune for the future of Hungarian-Ukraine relations. Namely, for instance, there was a train connection, Chinese Belt Road Initiative through Ukraine, built just before 2022, that has never been fully utilized to the scale Mr. Orbán has planned, and for which you probably would have needed Ukrainian relations. There is the whole gas transit system, and of course, Ukrainians at some point have been indicating that might be in jeopardy, which is a geo-economic tool of influence. And there is exactly this Hungarian minority in Ukraine, which potentially would benefit enormously should Ukraine join the EU, both from the access to the market, to the rights as EU citizens, and would leverage Hungarian position in terms of protecting minority rights within Ukraine, definitely, or in the process even of accessing the EU. It would be something constructive. But it seems like that there is an angle of, and of course we've seen it through voting in the EU, that Mr. Orbán has been clearly, opposing the future of Ukraine. And again, I think in the light of what you say, and not necessarily because Hungarians are opposing Ukraine membership. They might be lukewarm to the idea, but it's not like a hot issue or contentious issues in Hungary, right?
Yeah, actually, before I answer your first question, it's also there was a study by Policy Solutions, that is a Hungarian think tank, that was published just a few weeks ago, and that had a few interesting results, saying that the whole result was that Hungarians are sort of beginning to get tired of this negative narrative on Ukraine and the narrative of this constant warmongering that the Hungarian government is basically putting on posters, and not only on posters. When you turn on the TV or the radio, this is what you hear. Even when you turn on YouTube, you see the different advertisements of the government. But actually, when the full-scale invasion started, the polls showed that 60% of Hungarians were really concerned that the war could spread to Hungary or the European Union. Now, actually, that has lowered by 14%, which is, I know it's it's still quite a lot, saying that 46% of Hungarians would say that they are concerned that the war can spread, but that means that it's lowering and people are getting really tired of these messages.
Hi, if you're enjoying this episode, why not subscribe to Visegrad Insight? This gives you access to all our latest content online, as well as to our live and online events. You can use our special promo code for Visegrad Insight podcast listeners to get 35% off. Just go to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, and apply code Visegrad35. And now, back to the podcast.
But would you say that Hungarians would definitely oppose Ukrainian membership in the EU? Well, even Donald Trump in the leaked peace plan was advocating for that. He was calling from a certain moment. I think the rumor, I don't know if that is a rumor or it's true. He was calling Viktor Orbán to support Ukrainian bid in the EU. Maybe there was more of a rumor around summer when the European leaders have been visiting Trump in order to, mitigate the risks from the meeting in Alaska with Putin. So it seemed like, there is the whole kind of atmosphere is changing towards future Ukraine membership in the EU. And I wonder besides Mr. Orbán, is there some sort of a strong feeling about such prospects in Hungary?
Well, it also depends on which political party you belong to, which is very interesting. I mean, Hungary has never been more polarized, and that really shows up in the polls when we measure, when pollsters measure these certain topics that you're mentioning. I think that these 3 or 4 years of constant warmongering and enemy seeking that the government is doing did have its effect. So actually, if you ask people who support the government policies, they would certainly, if not oppose it wholeheartedly, but would be concerned about Ukraine joining the European Union. If you ask those who are undecided or are supporting the opposition, which is at this point TISA party headed by Péter Magyar, they would be more open to Ukraine joining the EU.
Well, but of course, that's not yet any policy. It's more of a sentiment that we know exists in the society. On the Polish side, we know that there is a sentiment also translated into a political position with an elected leader who actually was campaigning, part of his campaign, President Nawrocki, to say that he is not for the EU accession or NATO accession, for that matter, of Ukraine, which is exactly contrary to the government position. But he has won elections on that ticket as well. So this is important. But the membership of EU is not on the campaign tickets. It's more like a war and peace, as I understand,
exactly,
but not the policy issue. Mm-hmm.
Although a few months ago, or even before that, of course, there are topics within EU accession of Ukraine that have been put into the limelight, including agriculture, which is something that we definitely have to discuss before Ukraine joins the European Union, as it would probably affect Hungarian agriculture. But I think that's probably not a very good reason to oppose it 100%. But that was sort of put into the political debate.
Yeah, I think the question here is not agricultural system, agriculture industry itself, but the direct payments within the common agriculture policy, which, unlike Poland, Hungary has fought for very, very dearly and has won one of the highest direct payments from the common agriculture policy, which in turn translates into a lot of people sitting on big parts of land without using them that much, because the most efficient use of this land is actually not to do anything, just cash in direct payments from the EU. And the worry is, of course, if Ukraine is joining, what about the common agriculture policy? Which I think, and I cannot speak of specific names, but I know a number of experts from the agricultural sector of Hungary are actually starting to invest into relationship with Ukraine, advising them what they should do in order to join, but also to shape their negotiation policy around this topic, so not to hurt Hungarian interests. And I think that is very forward-looking and very intelligent approach.
That is good to know, but I must tell you, Wojciech, but that since the real campaign hasn't even started yet. So the official campaign is about to start around February next year. But in the past few years, every smaller detailed topic that we should actually discuss on NATO or the European Union, EU accession of Ukraine has sort of diminished, and it has been simplified, as we mentioned before, to the very simple message of here's Ukraine, here's TISA party and the European Commission. If you vote for TISA, then that means that Zelensky and Ursula von der Leyen will win, and our children will be taken to war to Ukraine. This is an actual thing in Hungary. But if you vote for Fidesz, then they will protect the sovereignty of Hungary, and nothing like this will ever happen to your kids.
Yeah, which altogether seems to be counterfactual in the terms of what usually happens. Because if Ukraine fails, then the border of Ukraine might be dominated by pro-Russian aggressive positions in time, if not immediately, and that will indeed risk put in jeopardy the security of Hungary. Will get it more exposed, because Hungary is, of course, the neighbor of Ukraine. But I don't think anyone does this kind of analysis, of course, and for sort of foresight for the public.
Not only this, but Russia is hardly mentioned. So there is this war that has been started by Russia. And even if you analyze the prime minister's speeches or any speech of any politician, basically, I mean, like, there was a speech on the 23rd of October given by Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, which is actually one of our biggest national holidays. And it is remembering those people who died fighting Soviet oppression in 1956. And in his speech, Viktor Orbán mentioned Brussels a number of times, but he only mentioned the Soviet Union and Russia. I mean, it was one or two times. I would have to check, but there was a huge difference.
Victoria, we are recording this in the week when we learn about the news, and by the time we release this podcast, we will know if the news is actual and what came out of it, that Viktor Orbán is actually going to Moscow. It seems that even Moscow, by the way, according to the leaked document about the peace plan, was in favor of Ukraine joining the EU. Do you think Mr. Putin might be actually persuading Mr. Orbán about the prospects of Ukraine in the EU, that it is actually a good idea, since he's so much for many of the strategic points of strategic communication points of Moscow? Or that wouldn't be even the case?
I would be probably surprised if President Putin would try to convince Viktor Orbán on Ukraine joining the European Union. But I think this would, if this meeting takes place, as we are having this conversation on Wednesday, and the official confirmation of Viktor Orbán visiting Moscow or President Putin has not arrived yet. But if it does, it's going to be the fourth meeting. Is it the fourth meeting between the two leaders since the start of the full-scale invasion? Actually, it would probably be the 14th meeting altogether. And actually, Viktor Orbán kept his promise, because he said that he promised that he would meet President Putin once every year when he was elected. So at least he keeps his word. I think at this point, it's probably going to be the peace plan that's going to be on the table, the quite long table that we remember quite well. Viktor Orbán has been an adamant supporter of the peace plan of President Trump. And as you know, he has written a letter to the European Commission on Saturday, basically telling them to accept the proposal put on the table by President Trump. So I think that would be the main idea. Although since the Geneva talks and the peace plan being sort of softened from basically Ukrainian European Union leaders, I think that's probably going to be just a round table of views between Viktor Orbán and Putin, and probably Trump as well, as Orbán visited him just 2 weeks ago in DC, in Washington, DC.
Well, we will also see what will be the message that Mr. Orbán tells to Mr. Nawrocki after a visit to Moscow. Mr. Nawrocki coming to Budapest very soon for a presidential format of the Visegrad Group Cooperation. Hungary hosts the presidency for this year. I mean, this half a year and the next half a year. And presidential visit is nigh, with Mr. Nawrocki being very close to the Hungarian position, except exactly position on Russia, it seems. So that's going to be a very interesting meeting in the week ahead from the time of this recording. But the moment we will release the recording, it will be just basically a day before. We're planning to release, as probably you might be hearing this podcast for the first time, the earliest on the 2nd of December, 3rd of December this year, 2025. And that's going to be a message. And Mr. Nawrocki has been quite often influenced also by Hungarian points. Let's see which way and who pulls the strings more. That's something to observe and watch closely. And to comment later on. We don't know much more about this visit, except the fact that it's taking place, right?
But if it does take place, I mean, like the Budapest peace meeting should have taken place 3 weeks ago, and it hasn't, between Russia and the United States. And like we are still waiting for it to happen. So actually it has become quite difficult to analyze international affairs nowadays because everything's changing within the day.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks for the long view, long perspective on Hungarian-Ukrainian relations and the future of Ukraine in the EU, which was and it still will be the big focal point for many of us across Europe and hopefully in the United States as well. Viktória Serdült, Wojciech Przybylski, that was the episode.
Thank you.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight Podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.